Karen Carpenter, the pop singing star, died today of cardiac arrest. She was just 32 years old.
Karen Carpenter died this morning at 9:51, the victim of cardiac arrest.
The tragic life and death of Karen Carpenter. She had one of the most recognizable voices in popular music, warm, rich, and achingly beautiful. But on February 4th, 1983, Karen Carpenter collapsed in her parents' home in Downey, California. She was only 32 years old. Her death shocked millions and forced the world to confront a disease that had been hiding in plain sight. The girl with the golden voice. Karen Ann Carpenter was born on March 2, 1950, in New Haven, Connecticut. She was the second child of Agnes and Harold Carpenter, joining her older brother Richard. The family seemed perfectly ordinary, middle-class Americans with traditional values. In 1963, they moved to Downey, California, chasing better weather and new opportunities. Music ran in the family, though no one could have predicted what was coming. Richard showed talent at the piano early on, and their mother had high expectations for him. Karen initially took up the glockenspiel in the school band, but it was the drums that truly captured her heart. She had a natural sense of rhythm and timing that impressed everyone who heard her play. But here's the thing. While Karen was becoming an exceptional drummer, she also started singing. And when she did, people stopped what they were doing to listen. Her voice had this unique quality, a depth and warmth that seemed impossible from someone so young. It wasn't just technically good. It had emotion, vulnerability, something that made you feel whatever she was singing about. Richard noticed. He was already thinking about forming a band, and having Karen's voice as the centerpiece made perfect sense. They tried different configurations, different band members, different styles. Eventually, they stripped it down to just the two of them with studio musicians. The Carpenters were born. Their early attempts to break into the music industry were rough. Rejection after rejection. Record executives didn't know what to make of them. Their sound was soft, melodic, almost old-fashioned in an era of psychedelic rock and rebellion. But Herb Alpert, the legendary trumpet player and co-founder of A&M Records, heard something special. He signed them in 1969, skyrocketing to stardom. The breakthrough came fast. Their cover of the Beatles' Ticket to Ride got some attention, but it was Close to You in 1970 that launched them into the stratosphere. The song hit #1 and stayed there. Suddenly, the Carpenters were everywhere. Radio couldn't get enough of them. The hits kept coming. We've Only Just Begun, Rainy Days and Mondays, Superstar, Hurting Each Other, Top of the World. Each one showcased Karen's incredible voice, that distinctive contralto that could break your heart with a single note. Richard's arrangements were sophisticated, layered, perfect. Together they created a sound that was instantly recognizable. The 1970s belonged to them. They sold millions of records. They won Grammy Awards. They performed at the White House. President Nixon called them his favorite group. Their appeal was universal because their music felt genuine, emotional, accessible. While other artists were experimenting with progressive rock or disco, the Carpenters made beautiful, straightforward pop music that your grandmother and your younger sister could both enjoy. Critics weren't always kind. Some dismissed them as too wholesome, too safe, too middle of the road. The word square got thrown around a lot. Karen and Richard were clean-cut, polite, and didn't fit the rock and roll rebel image that dominated the era. But audiences didn't care about what critics thought. They bought the albums. They packed the concerts. Karen was the face of the group, even though she often downplayed her role. She'd sit behind the drums for many performances, almost hiding. When she did stand at the front microphone, she seemed uncomfortable with the attention. She'd make self-deprecating jokes between songs. Despite being one of the most famous singers in the world, she never seemed to fully embrace that spotlight. Their touring schedule was relentless. Album after album, concert after concert, television appearance after television appearance. The pressure to maintain their success was enormous. Richard handled the arrangements, the production decisions, the musical direction. Karen showed up and made it all sound effortless. But nothing about their lives was effortless anymore. Behind the smile. The public saw a smiling, talented young woman living the dream. Behind closed doors, things were more complicated. The Carpenter family dynamic was unusual, to put it mildly. Agnes Carpenter, their mother, had always focused most of her attention on Richard. He was the prodigy, the one she bragged about. Karen felt it, even if no one said it directly. Fame brought scrutiny, lots of it. Magazines commented on how they looked, what they wore, everything. And Karen started noticing the comments about her weight. She'd always been healthy, athletic even. But now people were analyzing her appearance in print, on television, everywhere. One review called her chubby. That word stuck with her like nothing else. Richard was dealing with his own demons. He'd developed a serious addiction to Quaaludes, prescription sedatives that were everywhere in the 1970s. His behavior became erratic. Recording sessions got harder. The pressure to keep producing hits while managing his addiction was crushing him. Karen worried about him constantly, even while her own problems were developing. Perfectionism defined both of them, but it manifested differently. Richard obsessed over every musical detail, sometimes doing hundreds of takes. Karen obsessed over her appearance, over being good enough, over living up to expectations that kept growing. She was the star everyone saw, but she felt like she was constantly falling short. The family didn't talk about feelings. That wasn't how the Carpenters operated. Problems got buried, ignored, worked around. Agnes Carpenter ran a tight ship, and expressing vulnerability wasn't encouraged. So Karen kept smiling, kept performing, kept pretending everything was fine, even when it very clearly wasn't. The disease no one talked about. It started innocently enough, the way these things often do. In 1967, before the Carpenters hit it big, Karen decided to lose a few pounds. Nothing extreme, just a simple diet. She went from about 145 pounds to 120. People complimented her, told her she looked great. Those compliments felt good, really good. But something shifted after that chubby comment. Losing weight became about more than just appearance. It became about control, about being disciplined, about being perfect. In an industry where she felt she had limited control over her schedule, her image, her life, food was something she could control completely. By the mid-1970s, Karen was deep into disordered eating patterns. She'd severely restrict what she ate, sometimes going all day on barely anything. She'd count every calorie obsessively. Exercise became extreme. She'd work out for hours, burning off whatever little she'd consumed. The weight kept dropping. Here's what made it worse. Nobody really understood eating disorders back then. Anorexia nervosa was barely discussed publicly. It wasn't something you saw on television or read about in magazines. Most people had never heard the term. Those who had often thought it only affected teenage girls from troubled homes, not successful adult women with seemingly perfect lives. Karen's family noticed she was getting thin. Of course they did, but they didn't know what they were dealing with. Agnes Carpenter would cook Karen's favorite meals, trying to entice her to eat. Karen would push the food around her plate, take a few bites, claim she'd eaten earlier or wasn't hungry. The excuses worked because no one had a framework for understanding what was really happening. The medical community wasn't much help either. Doctors in the early 1980s had limited knowledge about treating eating disorders. Therapy approaches were primitive. There were no specialized treatment centers like we have today. Many physicians didn't take it seriously as a legitimate medical condition. Some thought it was just vanity gone too far, that the person could simply choose to eat normally if they really wanted to. What people didn't understand then, and what we know clearly now, is that anorexia nervosa is a serious mental illness. It's not about vanity. It's not about wanting attention. It's a complex psychological condition often involving trauma, control issues, perfectionism, and distorted body image. Karen genuinely couldn't see what everyone else saw when she looked in the mirror. A body under siege. By 1975, Karen weighed around 90 pounds. Her 5'4" frame looked skeletal, though she still insisted she needed to lose more. The physical effects of starvation were taking over her body in ways she either didn't notice or refused to acknowledge. Anorexia doesn't just make you thin, it destroys your body from the inside out. When you don't eat enough, your body starts breaking down its own tissue for energy. Muscle disappears first, including heart muscle. Bones become brittle as calcium depletes. Hormones stop functioning properly. The digestive system essentially shuts down because there's nothing to digest. Karen's hair started thinning. Her skin took on a grayish tone. She was constantly cold because her body didn't have enough fuel to maintain its temperature. Her heart rate dropped dangerously low. She experienced irregular heartbeats. Her immune system weakened, making her susceptible to every illness that came along. Simple activities left her exhausted. People around her were terrified. Fellow musicians who worked with the Carpenters watched her disappear before their eyes. Concert footage from this period is hard to watch. You can see her bones through her stage clothes. Her movements are slower, more deliberate, like she's carefully rationing her energy. But Karen couldn't see it. Body dysmorphia is cruel that way. When she looked in the mirror, she still saw someone who needed to lose weight. Friends would tell her she looked sick, and she genuinely seemed confused. She'd insist she was fine, that everyone was overreacting, that she just had a fast metabolism. The denial was powerful. She'd wear baggy clothes to hide her body, partly because she was cold and partly to avoid comments. She'd make jokes about her appearance to deflect concern. In interviews from this period, you can hear her irritation when interviewers brought up her weight. She wanted to talk about music, not her body. Desperate attempts to save her. By 1980, Richard finally confronted his own addiction and checked into a treatment facility. This meant the Carpenters had to stop touring, stop recording, just stop. For the first time in over a decade, Karen had a break from the relentless schedule. But this break didn't help her recover. Without the structure of work, her eating disorder actually got worse. Her family tried everything they knew how to try. They pleaded with her. They argued with her. Agnes Carpenter tried guilt, tried love, tried anger. Nothing worked. You can't logic someone out of anorexia any more than you can logic someone out of cancer. It's a disease, not a choice. In 1980, Karen married Tom Burris, a real estate developer she'd been dating. The marriage seemed rushed, and people who knew her questioned whether she was truly in love or just desperate to prove she could have a normal life. The relationship was troubled from the start. Tom had financial problems he'd hidden from her. She found out he'd had a vasectomy without telling her, which devastated her because she wanted children. The marriage lasted barely over a year before they separated. The divorce hit Karen hard. She saw it as another failure, more evidence that something was fundamentally wrong with her. Her weight dropped even further. Finally, in 1982, her family managed to convince her to see a therapist who specialized in eating disorders. She started working with Stephen Levenkron in New York City. Levenkron recognized immediately how sick Karen was. He recommended intensive therapy, possibly inpatient treatment. Karen resisted anything that would make her condition public. She was still trying to protect the Carpenters' image, still worried about disappointing fans. But she did agree to regular therapy sessions. The treatment was complicated by something Karen had been doing secretly. She'd started taking a PCAC syrup, a medication designed to induce vomiting in poisoning cases. People with eating disorders sometimes abuse it to purge without the physical act of throwing up. But a PCAC is highly toxic, especially with repeated use. It poisons the heart muscle specifically. The final days, November 1982. Karen finally agreed to inpatient treatment at Lenox Hill Hospital in New York. She spent 6 weeks there, working with therapists, nutritionists, and doctors. For the first time, she seemed to be taking her condition seriously. She gained some weight, reaching about 108 pounds by the time she was discharged in January 1983. Everyone felt hopeful. Karen seemed more like herself. She talked about restarting her career, about making new music. She flew back to California to stay with her parents while continuing outpatient treatment. Those close to her thought maybe, finally, she'd turned a corner. February 4th, 1983 started like any other morning. Karen woke up in her bedroom at her parents' house in Downey. She got dressed. She was supposed to go sign some papers related to her divorce that day. Her mother was elsewhere in the house. Around 9 a.m., Karen collapsed in a walk-in closet. She lost consciousness and fell forward. The impact didn't wake her. Her heart had simply stopped. Agnes found her minutes later and called 911 immediately. Paramedics arrived and rushed Karen to Downey Community Hospital. They tried everything to revive her. Nothing worked. She was pronounced dead at 9:51 a.m. The official cause of death was heart failure caused by complications of anorexia nervosa. The autopsy revealed that years of malnutrition combined with the toxic effects of ipecac syrup had irreversibly damaged her heart. Even though she'd gained weight in those final weeks, the damage was already done. The aftermath and legacy. The news hit hard. Fans around the world couldn't process it. Karen Carpenter, whose voice had provided the soundtrack to their lives, was gone. She was 32. The funeral drew huge crowds, musicians, celebrities, and thousands of regular people who'd been touched by her music came to pay respects. But Karen's death did something important. It forced eating disorders out of the shadows. Suddenly, everyone was talking about anorexia nervosa. News programs did special reports. Magazines published articles. Parents became aware that this was a real disease that could kill their children. The medical community took notice too. Research funding increased. Treatment approaches improved. Specialized eating disorder clinics opened. Laws changed regarding how these conditions were classified and treated by insurance companies. Karen's death probably saved countless lives by making people aware of how serious eating disorders really are. Her mother, Agnes Carpenter, struggled with guilt for the rest of her life. Richard threw himself back into music but never quite recovered from losing his sister and musical partner. He later worked to preserve her legacy, remastering their albums and ensuring new generations could discover her voice. The Carpenters' music endured. We've Only Just Begun still plays at weddings. Top of the World still makes people smile. Karen's voice, captured forever on recordings, continues to move people decades after her death. New artists cite her as an influence. Vocal coaches study her technique. But the tragedy is inescapable. Here was someone with an extraordinary gift, someone who brought joy to millions, someone who should have had decades more to live and create. Instead, a disease that thrives in silence and shame took her away far too soon. Karen Carpenter's story remains a powerful reminder that success, fame, and talent don't protect anyone from mental illness, and that the people who seem to have everything might be struggling with battles nobody sees.